I can remember the afternoon. I was slightly under the age of 30 with the daunting task of raising 3 beautiful children, all under the age of 8. You see, when I said I do, I thought it meant forever. But apparently forever isn't what he had in mind. Don't get me wrong. Over the years, I've been blessed to enjoy both personal and professional successes. Truth is, even though I help manage a university program that offers business consulting support to over 100 businesses and nonprofit organizations each year, and with that, I've had the privilege to mentor and support hundreds of our business students along their university journey. And even though I've been able to build a growing customer base over the past 13 years, representing one of the top 5 global skincare brands, and even though as I stand here today, a very proud mother of 3 amazing adult children, there was a time when I was teetering on the edge of not just being broke, but broken. You see, having been raised by a single mother, I was determined not to become one. So a year after graduating high school, my boyfriend of 3 years asked me to marry him, and I said yes. I moved to Southern California, and as I was getting used to life as a military wife, 4 years later, we had our first son. And 2 years after that, we welcomed a beautiful baby girl. And it was during those years that I began to realize that my husband's idea and my idea of a committed marriage were very different. The marriage continued to worsen over the next few years, and I finally reached that breaking point. And with no more fight in me, or so I thought, in the winter of '97, a trip to the doctor's office for what I thought was a flu bug turned out to be one last blessing from my 12-year marriage. I was pregnant with our second son. And by the fall of the same year, I'd filed for divorce. And so as I moved into the spring of '98, a divorced mother of an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-month-old, with no college degree, having no idea what was next, the fear of my new reality began to override all my senses, and I could only describe it like being in a boxing match with a series of gut-wrenching blows being delivered one after another. But how many of you know that as a single parent, you don't have the luxury of a timeout? And so as I sat there in anguish over the situation that I'd found myself in, I can remember going into the shower. You see, that was the only place in my little 2-bedroom apartment where I could let my emotions out. And so as I stood there with the water from the shower mixing with the tears rolling down my face, I realized that I'd hit rock bottom. Standing there just confounded with being in this unfamiliar place, asking myself, how did I get here? And how the hell do I make it out? Anybody ever been there? Well, I began to remember this story of a young girl, someone that I'd come to know very well. You see, this young girl had a baby at 16, and 2 years later, she'd have another. Now understand, she had these babies in the late 60s, and there were few options without financial support. She'd have to go on government assistance, right? Well, that young girl drew on something that was deep within her, remnants of strength and courage that had been imprinted in her DNA by her mother and grandmother before her. And she'd draw on that strength and courage to draw a line in the sand, and she'd tell herself, I know what this looks like, but public assistance will not be a part of my story. She'd go on to earn her GED and get into a program to become a nurse's assistant. And as she went about raising her kids, one would be hard-pressed to catch her bitching, moaning, or whining about any of the struggles she faced. To talk with her, you'd never know what difficult challenge she just made it through, or what new struggle she was facing. If you haven't guessed already, that young girl was my mother, who this year, at the young age of 67, earned her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. Looking back, this is where I first learned about staying positive in the face of difficult challenges. It's also where the seeds of my first core pillar were planted, being able to choose a positive attitude daily. And in my professional life, being able to choose a positive attitude has helped me to consistently achieve demanding client recruitment goals semester after semester, even when it looked like we wouldn't meet the demand. And so every day I'd get the kids up and ready and dropped off to school and daycare before driving on to work. Those car rides were filled with all kinds of emotion. And externally, I tried not to show it. For a while, I relied on that fake it till you make it approach. You know the one. But I think a shift happened for me when I began to meditate on one of my grandmother's mantras. When you talk to her about anything that was bothering you, she'd say, "Baby, let go and let God." She said it just like that, too. But the reality was, I was in the situation that I was in because of the decisions and choices that I had made or allowed others to make for me. Ouch. Truth hurts, huh? Well, acknowledging that truth allowed me the ability to really let go and let God. Now, did that mean that there was nothing more for me to do? Absolutely not. I had to decide how I wanted to show up in the world, both personally and professionally. And I wanted my light to make others feel supported, encouraged, and empowered. And so when I look back to my high school years as an athlete, I began competing in track and field at about 5 or 6 years old. And I can still remember as I was getting older, racing down the middle of the street against the boys, oftentimes beating them. And as I moved through elementary and junior high, it became clear that school was not going to be my strong suit. Now on the track, that's where I excelled. I competed with the city track club until I was ready to enter high school, and I made the varsity team as a freshman. And as I was finishing my senior year, my track coach would come to me with some great news. He had gotten me a partial scholarship to attend Sacramento State. I'd be the first in my family to go to college. But that scholarship would only help me achieve part of my dream because it only covered part of the tuition, part of the books. Unable to bridge the gap, I had to watch the door close on that amazing opportunity. Instead, I'd move to Southern California and get married. It was only recently as I was preparing this talk that I realized something. My 18-year-old self never took the time to grieve the loss of that opportunity. I never stopped to think about the what ifs. How far would my talents have taken me? Could I even compete at a collegiate level? So when preparing this talk, I actually took that time to begin to process the feelings of disappointment and anger that surfaced. And today I'm clear there was a solution. I simply didn't have anyone equipped to help me find it. And so as I stand here today, I've gained a better understanding of why my second core pillar, which is to be of service, resonates so deeply. I've learned that no matter where I am in life, I can always find ways to be of service to others, both personally and professionally. And that's why I feel so privileged in my professional life when I have the opportunity to talk with university students who are struggling to make a decision on their major, on how to handle a particularly challenging personal or professional situation. I have the opportunity to pour into them from my own successes and failures. And I want them to feel supported in knowing that they're not alone, encouraged to know that there is a solution to work towards, and empowered to know that they already have what it takes to reach their goals. They just have to be willing to operate just outside of their comfort zone. And that leads me to my third core pillar, which is to look for the stretch. My life has put me in situations where I was forced to stretch. It'd be nice if those challenges only happened once in a lifetime. So in addition to being divorced, I'd soon be faced with another challenge. You see, I'd been working with a local auto manufacturer, and after being on disability for about 6 weeks, I'd returned, and the tension in the office was so thick you could literally cut it with a knife. And I'd soon learn that I'd be part of a group of employees that would be laid off. And so there I was, a divorced mom of 3, no college degree, and now unemployed. But something else I learned along this journey with 3 sets of young eyes watching was that failure really only happens when you quit. So quitting was not an option. And after not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 attempts at passing a required statistics course, I finally passed with a B+. That was a situation of me being forced to stretch. Today, I look for situations to stretch or be outside my comfort zone. And so as I look back about a year ago, I attended this groundbreaking new event. You may have heard about it. It was called Sue Talks. And I can still remember sitting in the front row, just a bundle of nerves for the presenters. And once the talks began, I found myself being drawn into each presenter's talk, so impressed with how I was able to relate in some way to each one. And as they all came back on stage for their final applause, it happened. Before I could stop it, I blurted out, "I want to do a Sue Talk." And with amazing support and accountability from my CWI sisters, there I was. And today, here I am. Today, I push myself to do more than just talk the talk. Tonight, I stand here, a Sue Talk presenter, walking the walk, and I ask, who of you in this audience will be the next one to push yourself, to stretch yourself, to perhaps step onto the next Sue Talk stage?